welcome to this auditorium of Udaipur Architecture Festival. It's a virtual auditorium, but I hope now you are used to it and attending these sessions which are informatory and thought-triggering ones. Today we have a very special guest in this session. We have architect Anna Heringer from Germany.
Namaste.
Namaste, namaste, namaste. Yeah, when I called her, just a minute story. When I called her, I sent a mail that we want you in the festival. This is the first Udaipur Architecture Festival. We have no other background, and we are conducting it for the first time. It's a debut, and it's going to be virtual. The message I got from Lucia, her assistant, in next, I think, in 3-4 hours, because they just manage the time lag that we have between two countries and time zones that we have in between the countries, and I got the message that Anna has said yes, just because it is Udaipur. She loves Udaipur so much, and thank you very much for accepting this our request to be a part of this festival. It means a lot. It means a lot. It means a lot. So let us hear from Anna. Ma'am, tell us about your journey so far, and then we go to the slides. We don't have a formal introduction system because that's
good. That's wonderful. So no, it's true what you said. I said no more lecture talks to
that's
what so many, and then this came in, and I said, okay.
We got a festive mood. Okay, so you speak for yourself. That's good. Okay, so let's hear from her. Yeah.
No, I'm very happy to be. I mean, I would be even more happy if I could be with you in Udaipur now. It was really. I always have to extend my visa. You know, when I'm longer in Bangladesh and I'm going to India, to extend my visa from there. And on one of these trips, I was in Udaipur for a very short time, unfortunately, really short time, but it's just an amazing region and an amazing town, and I just loved it. So many greetings to Udaipur. I will tell you a bit about my story in architecture. So for me, the most important is that architecture is a tool to improve lives. That's really what I firmly believe in, and it's a very powerful tool, because when we calculate all the building budgets that are running through our hands as architects, we have power in our hands, and also a huge responsibility to use this money, this power, in favor of people and the planet, and also a cultural diversity. So I'm teaching all around, and that was, for example, a study trip that I did with my students from Switzerland, from ETH Zurich. And it was the end of October in the mountains in Austria, and it was really cold. You could see the ice crystals on the ground still at 3 p.m. And I had surprised the group with the news and the fact that there was no hut or any accommodation booked for the night. And the challenge for all these future architects was to create a shelter for the night with whatever they could find. And the results were not really luxurious. It was quite tough. It was really cold. Really, also for myself, I was really freezing in the night and I thought, what did I do? But it was a great learning experience to discover that there are a lot of resources given by nature for free, totally for free. And all we need is our sensitivity to see those resources and our creativity to use them. And there are so many people in the world who know better than this kind of example. And it's just, you know, how many architects are really able to build their own home, and how many people on this planet are able to build their own home. It's a little bit shameful to see, I think, that we are not so good in seeing the resources that we have and using them. So when I was 19, I went to a remote Bangladeshi village called Rudupur in the northern part of Bangladesh to be a volunteer, but mainly a learner, an intern at an NGO, a Bangladeshi NGO called Deepshika. And it was for me a wonderful learning experience. And there too, I learned that the most effective strategy for development, for really effective development, is to look at the resources you find at the place and to make the best out of them. And that is what I was trying to do in my architecture then about 7 years later. So I went back to Germany and then to Austria to study architecture, but came back to Rudupur every year. And then for my diploma project, I wanted to build a school, the Métis school, and in terms of materials, I didn't have to look far. Exactly the local materials, the mud that is under the feet and the bamboo that is just growing all around. And in terms of energy source, for me, the most important is the human energy. And when we think of energy, alternative energies, we always think of solar, wind, and so on. But I think we also have energy, we as human beings, and it's a very creative energy. And if we don't use this energy, we also create a social problem because people need work. So for me, it was very essential to create lots of job opportunities there and really have the energy of it was cut, the walls were cut into accurate shape. So there's no formwork needed. It's just the only tools are the water buffaloes and the spade. And like this, it just, the walls are growing up. And then, you know, whatever is cut, you just put in the mix again, and then you reuse the material. In terms of bamboo, it was a little bit challenging because I had calculated, you know, or not me, but the engineers had calculated it with, you know, very straight bamboo. We did a mock-up in the Technical University in Berlin, and then we had it tested, or Christoph Ziegert, our engineer, tested it, and when we came on the site, the situation was completely different. And then they told me, you know, I have to just build the mud walls, but I have to forget the second floor at the second story with the bamboo. And I said, you can't just do the design without the head, you know, it's kind of, it would look really weird. And then we were, you know, really having a crisis. And then we just thought, you know, how did they do it in the past? They were just building one-to-one mock-ups and then making tests, you know, and then they relied on that fact and not on the figures, you know, on paper. And that's what we did. And we took the curving of the bamboo that was preliminary really causing headache as an advantage and built it in a slightly vaulted way. And then we did the test, you know, just maximum people on this structure standing. And then we said, we saw it was even, and then we went for it. So we, of course, you can calculate these materials, but sometimes it's just, you know, makes more sense also to just build mock-ups, test the structures, and then go for it. And when you remember the curved bamboo, it was quite a challenge to get these 12.5 more or less straight meters of beams. Here you see the team all coming from the village itself, and that's my cousin, two cousins, and my cousin and his wife, Emmanuel and Stephanie, who are basket weavers and who are and also carpenters, and who were in charge of training the workers there. And for the realization, I had a partner, Eike Roswag, a Berlin architect. And after 6 months, the school looked like this. So it's like literally earth walls, like load-bearing earth walls, no cement in it, and then kind of a light bamboo structure that is also a little bit of a power post, which is an important symbol for education as well, I think. So it's a very, so for me, the idea was to have like really good roots, like really education is important, that you have good roots, that you're rooted in the ground, which is possible with the mud walls. And then of course also have the wings and the creativity and the freedom to think out of the box. We kept the tradition of sitting on the ground in the classroom, so it's a very neutral classroom. And in the hole, or in the wall back, in the backside wall where you have the hole, you come into the cave area. And for me, that was just, you know, the briefing of the client of Paul Ticker was to have a school building where learning is joy, and children feel joyful to be inside of this building. And then I tried to remember the spaces that I loved when I was a kid. And I think a kid from Germany is not so much different to a child in Bangladesh or India or somewhere else. I think we all, you know, that touches some archaic pattern languages, and it's the caves, you know, where you feel just like very protected, this warm feeling. And then of course, what's also always very important, that you have full overview of what's going on. So you are protected and hidden, but you can always see what's going on and hear what's going on. And that's the case in this case. You know, they are hidden, but through this hole, they always are connected still with the classroom and what's going on. So they would use it in a way, like let's say that the different pace of children of learning is respected. So if some kids are faster than the others in having done their work, you know, they could just grab a book, and instead of disturbing the others, just sit down in the cave and read and let the others finish in quiet, or they split up in teamwork. They also do meditate in that school, or of course the caves are also much used for playing in the break times. And that's the classroom in the top floor. And and I remember the first time we had it open, the kids were so excited to go up, because in that village they don't have 2-story buildings. So it was, for many, it was the first time that they really saw also parts of the village from a different perspective, which was really nice to see. Children all signed with the names on the doors, and they rightfully did so, because they also helped building the school. So every afternoon after their classes, they would come and help to build the school. And that's not possible with every material, but with mud it's possible. It's a very inclusive material. We had people that were really old working with us, we had people with disabilities working with us, we had the kids coming, and it's just because the material is so wonderful to touch, you know. And normally they would have like clay pottery classes in the afternoon, so they had pottery classes in a slightly bigger scale. And I think that's very important, because and no matter how small and how strong you are, and that was for me wonderful to see, that you find work and meaningful things to do for everyone, no matter how big you are. And I think you can all imagine how it feels when then in the end of the 6 months, you know, after, when you're a small girl or a boy or an illiterate day laborer who never had the chance to go to school, when you stand then in front of the school building and you know, wow, we did this, I did this just by using my hands, my muscles, and the dirt underneath my feet. It just gives such an enormous boost in self-confidence and trust in your own potentials, in the team, in the community, and also in the local materials, which, you know, is very difficult, because mud and bamboo, they don't have a good image. That is influenced a lot by, you know, the past, by colonial times already, where, you know, everyone who had money and education was trying to build in brick. And then, of course, you know, that went on, you know, with all sorts of development aid, and then all the media and everything. And of course, a lot the building industry. I don't know how it is in India, but in Bangladesh, like when you're going on a highway, every 5 minutes you're hit by an advertisement for concrete, for aluminium, for steel, and for air conditioning that comes along with that. So that's kind of a lot of branding that is going on, that says, you know, if you want to have a good living standard and a living condition, then you have to go for brick, for concrete, and not for mud. And but mud houses can stand for a very long time if certain measures and certain rules are respected. And the first rule is a good foundation. So a foundation that prevents the water coming from the ground to the walls. And the second rule is a good hat, a good roof. And the third rule is erosion control. That means that you have to slow down the pace of the water running over the facade. It's no problem. Mud can deal with water when it's not continuous and when there is not this energy of running down. That we have to avoid. Because what happens when a mud wall is getting wet, and if it's non-stabilized, which is very important, no cement in it, then the clay particles expand and the water cannot penetrate deep in the wall. And mud can also release the humidity in a very fast way again. So that is very important, not to add any cement and other things like this, stabilizers in the walls, because then it doesn't work anymore like this. But what is important is that you have speed breakers on the facade. This could be, like in that case, it's bamboo shingles, it could be lines of mortar, it could be lines of brick, that kind of hampers the speed of the water. So it's like when a hill has no rocks and no trees, then the water can run over this hill in a very fast way, and then you will face a lot of erosion. But when there are like the speed breakers and the water is slowed down, there is an erosion in the very beginning a little bit, but then it stops. So what is also very important on a micro level is that you add like elements like stones or brick chips or straw in the mix, so that is kind of sticking out a bit if the first centimeter is maybe eroded, and then there's a rough surface, and this rough surface is also needed to prevent the water running over the facade in a fast way. And then after 4 years approximately, I saw that there's a crystallization process happening And because the mud walls are breathing this humidity, and then the walls become really hard as rock. This is really incredibly strong. And of course, you need a certain wall thickness. That's also something that is needed, but that is also good for thermal comfort. So there is no stabilization in the walls, no cement, only in the foundation. And of course, Bangladesh has a lot of monsoon rains, and it's like we built the walls in 2005, and lots of monsoon rainy seasons have hit the walls, and the walls are really standing strong. And for me, it's always, when we talk about sustainability, for me, mud is really the champion, because you can take this material from the ground and then you just use it as an house. You can repair it easily. If something is broken, you just take the broken part, mix it with water, put it back on the wall, and it looks as before. And if you don't need this building anymore, it can be given back to the ground it came from, and you can plant a garden on top. And that for me is really, really fascinating, because there is no other material that can do this. And you can recycle it without any loss of quality and without much energy input. It's just human energy in the water that you have to add, and that's really wonderful. That makes it the champion for sustainability. And in terms of economic sustainability, for me the nice thing was that I was, of course, living also in that village, and in the evening I would go with the workers often by bike to the local market, and I could see how they spent the building budget, because every day they received their salary. So then the money was directly invested in the vegetables of the neighbors, or they got a new haircut, or they went to the tailor to get a new blouse. So that means that the building budget did not only have the school as a result, but it was also a catalyst for local development. And that for me was really, really the best part, because if I had built a school with concrete and steel and so on, this money would have been exported and lost for this community. And because of the Métis school got several awards, including the Aga Khan Award, I was able to do the next building there, the Deshi building, which is an educational training center. And here the most important was to save land, to go 2-story in clay, because clay is more durable, or mud is more durable than the bamboo. So it's crazy that despite the scarcity of land in Bangladesh, people in the rural areas still a lot live in single-story structures, and we wanted just to motivate them go into 2 stories and save this land for food cultivation. It's so important to save land as much as we can as architects. We really have to care for that. And we also wanted to include even more craftsmanship and more refined craftsmanship, because we saw that a lot of information and a lot of skills are also dying out, because plastic buckets from from China are becoming more cheap than the handmade baskets from Bangladesh. So we tried to make basket weaving in a slightly bigger scale then. So this is how we're just collecting ideas and then trying to use it maybe in a bit of different context or scale, but it's all coming from the direct surrounding. And this is the scenery that is always really making my heart ache when I'm leaving Dhaka. There is this miles of chimney fields that I have to pass, and then I'm always thinking, why do we put all these carbon emissions in that fantastic raw material, mud and clay, and just don't use our creativity and all the know-how that we have to just use the raw material and not pump in all this CO2. And it's just, this is just destroying our climate, our planet, and ultimately is also not giving a very good living comfort, because brick cannot deal with this humidity as good as mud can. So let's use the bricks for the foundation, but not for the walls. It's, I think, very important because we just cannot continue like this, because we don't have 3 planets, we only have one. Oh, so sorry. So the last building I realized in that village in Rudapur is the Ananda Loy building that just won the Oval Award. And unlike the first buildings where I built it really in a rectangular way, in a very straight way, which was important, I think, because in the beginning we had to proved that you can build very exactly, also and precise with this natural building materials. But with this building, I wanted to show, because it's a center for people with disabilities, it's important to show that it's beautiful, that we are all not following the norm and this kind of box thing, the functional box, that there are people that are dancing out of this system, out of this normative pattern, and that there is an incredible beauty that things are not following always the grid and the pattern. So for me, that was the most important part of this one. So when you approach that building, the first you see is the ramp where you enter, and that ramp is kind of winding and dancing all around the building. And it's almost like, also because the building materials are all clay, it's such a soft feeling. You really have the feeling you dance throughout this building. And that's the therapy room in the ground floor. That's the ramp and the veranda. And that's the spaces under the ramp. And it's also, here we have the hole on the ground so that it's easier, you can access. And it's also, you have to move your body in these spaces, and it could be part of the therapy as well, that you say, you cannot just, walk normally, you have to really move your body. And that's important also for part of the physical therapy sessions. And furthermore, it's also a place that the kids really, really love, both, the kids that have no disabilities and the kids with disabilities. And it's a place, it's a small little universe where you can meet and have your own world. And it's also, I also thought maybe, sometimes the therapy is stressful, and you don't want a break. You just can, hide away from your therapist and you're gone. I think that's also sometimes important, that you can just hide away sometimes when things are overwhelming. And that's the top floor, which is a small textile studio of Dipti Textiles. It's an initiative of Dipshika and a tailor friend of mine, of Veronica Lam. And we started this project because after traveling so often, such a long time to Bangladesh, I just saw how much the settlement patterns in this country are influenced by the garment sector, and how many people have to move, have to leave their beautiful villages and have to go and live in the textile hubs in conditions that are not humane. And I thought we have to bring some work to the people, where the people are, where they're able to build their own houses, where they have their home garden, the chickens, the goats, and so on. So, and of course their family network, which is very important. So we tried to make a product, to design a product that can be done completely in a decentralized way, and that is also deeply rooted in the resources in the textile culture of Bangladesh. So, but still my main passion is the earth and architecture, and it might not be in our focus, but about 3 billion people on this planet are living in mud buildings. There's more people living in mud houses than in concrete, but still, in our magazines, in architectural magazines, in the education systems, it's almost non-existing, which is not okay. And that also shows very much, that there is no lobby behind this building material. And it's been used in all sorts of contexts, in all sorts of climate zones, and it has proven to be a really suitable building material. But we need more, we need to bring it back to education systems and our curriculums of the university. So I brought the mud to Harvard, precisely 60 tons of mud right in front of the main facade of the Graduate School of Design in Cambridge, Boston. And this dirt was then transformed with the help of Martin Rauch, who is an expert in earthen structures in Austria, but working globally. And then 150 students, faculty members, and people from the surrounding, from the community, and other universities like MIT were joining in to transform this rather cold space in front of the Graduate School of Design in a warm place for people to gather. And the interesting thing was, that the clay in Boston is gray. It looks like concrete, really looked like concrete, but people were constantly touching the walls. And normally we don't go around cities and caressing walls, but they constantly did. And it made it clear for me that we perceive architecture not only in a visual way, but also in there are other senses responding on this material. And especially the earth is much more than a building material. It's so much connected. You know, it's an element. It's Mother Earth. You know, it's something that we're deeply connected with our human beings. And I think that just also makes us feel so well being surrounded in earth walls. So I also wrote a book together with Lindsay Blair-Howe and Martin Rauch about how to upscale earth. And one important thing is, of course, the technological development. So not changing the materials, but changing the tools how to use this material. And one example is, for example, prefabrication that Martin Rauch developed. So you have like huge blocks of earth that you prefabricate, you cut into pieces and then mount and staple it to large scale structures in urban spaces, for example, because of course in large cities you can't rotate with water buffaloes. So you have to do it in different ways, but it's absolutely possible. That's, for example, the Herzog Dömeron facade of the Ricola building, the Urb Center in Switzerland. And that's currently the first rent earth factory in Austria. So you can do these mud structures in a high-tech way, you can do it in a low-tech way, and you can mix those systems. And that's the wonderful thing on earthen structures. You can really find the appropriate technology for the context, for each context. So technological development, education is important, but also to prove that you can do modern structures with old materials such as bamboo and earth. And I was invited to design youth hostels for a small Chinese village for the Bamboo Biennale that had the aim to show the beauty of bamboo structures. So I designed 3 hostels with a core out of framed earth and stone, and attached to this cores are these concones, these sleeping units for the boys and girls. And around this are these loose bamboo structures.